Hello, I'm Challen and I'm the Edgy Skater. Today is another video in my beginner series. I wanted to talk to you about finding a coach. So, finding a coach is one of the first things that you're going to do. You might do this before you get your new or own pair of figure skates, or you might get the skates first. A coach is going to probably want you to get the skates early on, but right now, let's just focus on how do you find a coach in the first place. Okay, so there's a couple ways you can go about this, and that is going to determine initially how you find a coach. If you are someone that wants to begin in group lessons, like a learn to skate group, that coach that's going to be taking care of whatever your level is, or whatever group within that level, if it's a very big class, is going to be pre selected ahead of time. You're not going to pick the person, they will be assigned. And that is how a lot of people actually have their first coach. And if you really like that person, you can talk to them about private lessons. But let's say that you want to go straight into private lessons. How do you find a coach then? Okay, not every figure skate coach does like a basic skills or learn to skate programs. And that is technically its own little certification in and of itself. A lot of coaches just do private lessons. So the easiest way to do this is going to be looking up your local figure skating club, Google it, uh, go on their website, and usually all of these club websites will have a section somewhere that is coaches. And it's going to list everyone that teaches in that club. And a really good comprehensive website in their coaching section, it'll have their name, their picture, their personal qualifications or skating background history, and it will tell you what kind of a coach they are, what they specialize in. Now, if you're just beginning, any coach will be fine because every coach is going to know how to teach the basics and give you a good, strong foundation. So, if your goal is pair skating, you don't have to specifically start with a pair coach. And any coach is more than sufficient. And from there, what I would personally suggest doing is go to that club. You don't even necessarily need to skate, but try to observe the coaches that you're considering in action. And this is where skating parents can be very useful for you. So, figure skating is one of those places where reputation is next to everything. And parents of skaters are often very opinionated people. And they may have tried other coaches. They may have just had the one coach and stuck with them throughout their child skating, but they are going to have opinions about the coach they picked, why they picked them, as well as the other coaches in the club. So I would recommend trying to observe the coach in the wild, see if you like how they talk to their students, what their attitude is like when they get to the rink. How do they respond if parents or kids come up and ask them questions when they're still getting their skates on, they're still getting organized and ready before they even get on the ice? When they're on the ice, does this coach seem pretty kind and courteous? If they're very serious, are they serious in a very focused way without being like maybe uppity or mean or just kind of superiority complex, sort of like above it all. How much humility does this person seem to have when they talk with their students? Do they listen to them? Do they talk to them like they're children? Not in like an age appropriate way or in a condescending way. If they have adults, do they talk to them like their peers? Is there which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but is there a definitive line between the coach and student um, positions? Like, how do they interact with people? How do they interact with the other coaches? Is there like a general kind professionalism? Or what is their acknowledgement like? Does there seem to be any sort of like general camaraderie, or is there like a sense of competition or avoidance, or maybe even like some kind of attitude towards other people? And that doesn't necessarily mean that that person, is not a good person for having it, but it means there's some sort of a issue between them and others, and if they have that towards everyone, that that can be a big red flag. So you want to see, how does this person interact in their environment when they're having lessons. uh I'm not saying necessarily eavesdrop, but does the coach look like they get easily frustrated when a skater is struggling? Do they seem like they're somewhat encouraging of the skater, even if the skater is upset and having a difficult time? There's things like that, while they may not tell you the whole story because you're not really in that scenario with them, it can kind of help give you a sense or a vibe of what is this person like? How do they interact with others? How do others seem to interact and feel and respond to them? And I would make a list of coaches that you're interested in, and I would try to check out all of them. If you come across the student of that coach, if they're an adult, you can just flat out ask them. I'm thinking of um, getting a coach. What do you think of yours? If it's a parent, you can go up to them and ask, "Hey, I'm considering this coach. What do you think of them?" It's sort of, it can be a bit of a annoyingly long vetting out process. It could take you a few sessions to try to observe everyone you're interested in. The other thing I would suggest is you can take a couple trial lessons with the coach you're interested in. And I would sort of recommend doing this anyways before making a final decision. And you can tell that coach in advance you want to try a few lessons, or you technically don't even need to say that. But I would say give it 3 to maybe max of 5 lessons where you just kind of see how this coach is with you. Do you like their style? Do you like the way they communicate? Are they easy to understand? How do they act when you ask them questions about things? Um, what is their structure like? Some people like coaches with a lot of structure, and coaches that are really regimented. Other skaters kind of like it a little bit, a little more flexible, a little bit more. We'll see what the day brings. So, kind of having in mind already what kind of a training outlook or philosophy you want a coach to have will be helpful for you too. Um, so that's kind of like a whole another side of it, is getting clear on what do you want to do in skating, what skills or possible events do you want to work towards, and what kind of a training philosophy do you have? Do you want a drill sergeant? Do you want someone who is strict but nice? Do you want someone who's very firm and more heavy-handed? Do you want someone that is very not gonna say you're gonna find a whole lot of people like this, but people who are very chill, just kind of will feel everything out. We're not working on a specific timeline, so there's not really a push or a rush or a hard drive to accomplish anything in a specific amount of time. It's good to get to know yourself to help determine how do you best learn. What communication styles are easiest for you to understand? Do you need a coach who's very encouraging? Do you want a coach who primarily points out mistakes, um, so you know they made them, and if they don't say anything, that's more or less how you know that you did something right or sufficient enough? Because those sorts of coaches do exist. Do you need one who is very rewarding and encouraging every step of the way, and who gently approaches criticism or mistakes or maybe bad habits on the ice in your technique? So there's all of those sorts of things to consider. And a trial period is going to help you sort of figure out what do you think. Sometimes coaches will, for the first couple lessons, they might be a little overly nice compared to what their typical character is, which is another reason that it's good to talk to students of theirs, and ask the student or their parent, how long they've been working with this coach. You want to kind of get an idea of what it's going to be like working with this person after the honeymoon phase is over. And these things combined can help you make a more informed choice of who you want to hire. And even though it sounds like a lot, I don't want you to necessarily think of it as stressful, especially if you're new. Have a certain amount of fun with this. Um, if the first coach you pick doesn't work out, there's other ones. If there's multiple skating clubs in your area that you're interested in, you can check out any of them. Just be aware that if your coach belongs to a skating club, it is possible that down the road you might have to join that skating club. If they only teach on that club ice, you might get a guest pass for maybe a couple times, but after that you'd have to join the club in order to be a member to be able to continue to skate on that ice to work with that coach. So that is a potential consideration. Um, and I think I'm almost hesitant to say this. I think a few years back, um, they made a rule that all clubs, regardless of the club, it's one fee across the United States to join any club. Um, I don't think it wasn't always like that. And some clubs needed you to know an existing member to vouch for you um, when you put in your application to join. I don't know if it's still like that, but I know the majority of clubs didn't operate that way. But some of the older or bigger name or famous, if you will, clubs, some of them used to operate with someone vouching for you. What will it cost to work with a coach? That depends. It's going to depend on things like industry average, kind of based a combination of how long that person's been a coach and or what have their students accomplished and or what did that coach accomplish before they became a coach. So educational background things can potentially increase price a little bit, but it's more like typically someone who let's say, never qualified for sectionals or made it out of sectionals might be less expensive than someone who skated at nationals. And someone who went to Worlds or the Olympics would be more expensive than someone who never skated in international competition. Uh, Coaches can set their own prices, so it's a little bit subjective, but in the industry average would kind of take those sorts of variables into consideration. I had coaches that were anywhere from $1 a minute to I think the most expensive person was $2.50 a minute. I've heard some coaches charging $3. At the time I skated, that was uncommon. You That would have been something that was more reserved for people that had like been on international podiums and at the senior level. And I've heard some people charging something like practically $5 a minute, but I've never personally come across that. It was kind of like a some skating rumor in the wind. It wasn't even like in our area, so I don't know. I have still yet to encounter someone charging $5 a minute, but I would say somewheres between $1 and maybe two is what you could probably reasonably expect to pay, unless you're working with someone who has, quite hefty skating accomplishments themselves prior to becoming a coach. Keeping modern inflation in mind. Um, so trying to think if there's anything else to add to this. Uh, yeah, take your time with the process. If you like, you can create pros and cons lists for each person. Um, you can, journal about your experiences with that person. And if you do decide on a coach, and then let's say months later or a season later, even if it's a couple years down the line, you decide that it's not working, that's fine. It's okay to switch coaches. The only thing I want to caution against, and I think I'll end on this note, is something called coach hopping, which is when a skater does not stick with any coach for very long, and after a few months or a couple seasons, they get a new coach, and then they get a new coach, and then they get a new coach, until they've like practically had every coach in the club, and are maybe even possibly going to another skating club and doing the same thing all over again. While there may be, incompatibilities, or you maybe want to try a new discipline, or maybe you figured out that a different skating style works better for you and you need someone who is an expert in that, that's understandable. But constantly changing coaches, um, my cat Lucy just jumped up. I don't know if you got her tail or not, but just constantly changing coaches, that's not going to help your skating technique. It's actually potentially going to delay progress, because you want to really devote a proper amount of time to something to see if it's working or not. You're not going to necessarily know, especially if you need to relearn things in a whole new style. That takes time. And a year or two is not necessarily going to be enough time, particularly if you're new. So I don't encourage you to keep switching between various people. Um, you'll probably be happier, and your reputation as a student will be better if you thoroughly take the time to decide who you want to work with, and if you decide you want to switch, to be very clear about what your motives are and what your new qualifications, hopes, and intentions for that new coach is. So, I hope that this has been helpful and you now feel more confident going forward, exploring the different kinds of people that are out there, and that this video finds you having a good day and a good skate. Bye.